Hey there, and welcome. Ever stop and think about something pretty fundamental? Every single living thing, from a tiny bacterium to a massive blue whale, needs energy to live. But how do they get it? Where does all that power come from? Today, we're going to break down how life itself gets fueled up. Let's get into it.
And we're going to start with a question that seems super simple on the surface, but the answer is actually pretty amazing. Just think about a lettuce plant, right? It doesn't have a mouth, it can't go out for a snack. So where in the world does it get the energy to grow? Stick with me, because we're going to solve this little conundrum together.
So here's our game plan. First, we have to cover the basic rules that energy has to play by. Then, we'll meet the two main types of players, the makers and the takers. After that, we'll zoom in to see how things get built up and broken down inside cells, find out what the cell's actual power source is, and finally, we'll solve our lettuce problem and do a quick check to make sure it all makes sense.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even begin to talk about energy in biology, we need to understand the absolute, unbreakable laws of the universe that govern it. And that, my friends, is the field of thermodynamics.
And really, there are two big rules you need to know. The first one is the law of conservation. It basically says you can't just make energy out of thin air, and you can't destroy it either. You can only change its form. You know, like how the chemical energy in your lunch becomes the energy you use to walk around. The second law is all about entropy, which is a fancy word for disorder. It means that every time energy changes form, some of it gets lost as unusable energy, usually as heat. No transfer is ever 100% efficient.
So working within those two rules, life has come up with two main strategies for getting energy. You're either a maker or you're a taker. And in biology, we have names for them: autotrophs and heterotrophs.
And this table just lays it all out so perfectly. You've got the autotrophs, the makers. They literally make their own food. Most of them, called photoautotrophs, use sunlight, think plants. Then you have the heterotrophs, the takers. They get their energy by eating other living things. Yep, that's us, and animals, and fungi. So it really boils down to this. You either make your own fuel or you have to eat something that did. This is a perfect picture of how that energy flows. See, it all starts with the sun. That energy gets captured by the plant. That's our autotroph. Then along comes a heterotroph, the aphid, and it eats the plant to steal that energy. But then another heterotroph, the ladybug, eats the aphid. It's this direct handoff of energy all the way up the chain.
All right, now let's zoom way in, like down to the cellular level, to see how this all actually works. We're going to look at how cells build things up and break things down. All those chemical reactions happening inside a cell, that's called metabolism, and it's split into two main pathways. This is a really simple but super powerful idea. Anabolic pathways build bigger, more complex molecules from smaller ones, and to do that building, they need energy. Just think anabolic and add. Catabolic pathways do the exact opposite. They break down big molecules into smaller ones, and in the process, they release energy. For that one, think catabolic and catastrophe, things breaking apart. And here it is, the most famous example of that cycle in nature. Photosynthesis is an anabolic pathway. It takes simple stuff, carbon dioxide, water, and uses sunlight to build a complex sugar molecule, storing that energy. Cellular respiration, on the other hand, is a catabolic pathway. It takes that sugar and breaks it down to let all that stored energy out so the cell can use it. One builds, the other breaks. It's a beautiful cycle.
Okay, so we've seen how energy gets captured and how molecules get built or broken. But how does a cell actually hold on to that energy to use it when it needs it? The answer is one single incredibly important molecule.
I'd like you to meet ATP, adenosine triphosphate. You can basically think of this as the rechargeable battery for the cell, or maybe the energy currency. It's not just in some organisms, it is the universal energy molecule for all known life on Earth. This little guy powers pretty much everything your cells do.
So how does this battery actually work? Well, look at its name, triphosphate. It has 3 phosphate groups. The real magic is in the bond holding that third phosphate on. When the cell needs to get something done, it just breaks that bond, and pop! A burst of energy is released that the cell can use. And what's left is ADP, diphosphate. Later, when the cell gets more energy from food, it just sticks that third phosphate back on, recharging ADP back into a full ATP battery.
All right, we've gone over the rules of the game, we've met the players, and we've found the power source. I think it's time. Let's put all the pieces together and finally solve our lettuce conundrum.
So,
Here it is. How does lettuce get energy? It gets energy because it's an autotroph. It uses that anabolic pathway we talked about, photosynthesis, to grab sunlight and turn it into chemical energy. And where does it store that energy? In the bonds of that universal cellular battery, ATP. See? When you have all the pieces, it just clicks. Now, let's do a quick check to make sure these key ideas stick.
Okay, first up, what's the one thing on this list that's not true about energy? Remember that first law? The correct answer is D. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed.
All right, which of these has to eat other things to get its energy? Is it the maker or the taker? It's the taker, which means the answer is B, heterotroph.
What's the name of that universal rechargeable battery that powers our cells? I bet you've got this one. It is, of course, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now let's think about photosynthesis. Which of these descriptions does not fit? Well, photosynthesis builds sugar, right? So it's an anabolic pathway, not a catabolic one. The answer is B. Let's circle back to those fundamental rules. What do we call that law that says energy can't be created or destroyed? That is the big one, the first law of thermodynamics. Answer A.
Okay, remember our little trick. If a process uses energy to build something bigger, we add to it, and that makes it C, anabolic.
And last one. When your cell caches in an ATP molecule for that burst of energy, what does it get? You break off one phosphate, so you're left with ADP and a free phosphate, ready to be charged up again. The answer is B.
Awesome job. So that brings us to one last thing to chew on. We said the second law of thermodynamics means the whole universe is constantly moving towards disorder, towards entropy. But life is the complete opposite of that. A single cell, an organism, an entire ecosystem, there are all these pockets of incredible, complex order. So how is that even possible? How can something as structured as life exist in a universe that's always trying to fall apart? It's kind of a mind-bending question, and it's what makes life the most fascinating thing in the cosmos. Thanks for digging into it with me today.